Hi, the name is Kevin. Okay. So I think it does this. Was use the mic. It's my first time using this software, and I want to introduce myself, and we're just gonna be a first name basis. I think. Uh, and yeah, seems like everything is going on the internet nowadays, and this is me going on the internet doing my first YouTube video, pretty much. I mean, other than the other ones you've seen on my channel, where some of them is just, well, most of them, most of the scenes so far I've been able to capture is just myself playing goalie. But I'm also currently a master's divinity student at a divinity college up here in Canada. So I want to share some thoughts. I mean, I received quite a bit of criticism for the last time I tried to do a talk or sermon, and it didn't go well at all. And one of the main feedback is that they were saying I was trying to cover way too many topics at once. So, for the purpose of this particular recording, I'm gonna stick mostly talking about COVID, but with a little bit of a twist where it's like, yeah, it's COVID, and you may have seen a lot of news of that already, and but this is what I personally feel is going on with COVID, and these are just like my personal thoughts. Obviously, I'm not God. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not, whatever. I'm not a doctor, a medical doctor, or anything like that. So definitely do not. You can just take what I gotta say with a grain of salt. You don't gotta assume that everything is necessarily truth. And my another disclaimer is I'm also not a pastor, so I'm actually studying more of the spiritual care and counseling aspects of the college. So I would say that do not necessarily consider my talk here to be prophetic in any way, but it's just like my personal thoughts. I've been well, let's just say since the pandemic started, I've been reading and following a lot about COVID, but I guess it was just like what everybody else follows, or you can say like the secular views of COVID. It was only earlier today that I started looking up some videos on YouTube. I searched COVID timeline for Christians, and I got a few results, and there was like, and then I started watching a little bit, but I having a busy week as usual, and so I haven't been able to really dig into it too much. But I think there is probably a lot of theories other than my own out there about what's really going on with God and whatever. And I think one thing to keep in mind is that a really great lesson I learned from this one video I watched, which I'll show you in a second, and then I'll summarize it before I play the clip. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, never mind. Unfortunately, I couldn't find my the other camera that's done the other videos, so I'm using a webcam and a new software program, first time using it. So you can record the screen, but you can't actually switch between screen and webcam. It doesn't really toggle on the same video. It's unfortunate, but I will provide the link in the bottom. So the video itself is called "Is the End of Days Prophesied in the First Word of the Bible?" And I had to do another talk on. I had previously done another talk where I was reading a bit of Revelation, and I was also studying, trying to figure out, what's going on with the end times and COVID a little bit. And this is kind of more. Time has passed. I have time to look into COVID. I had time to watch that 1 hour video, for example. So I've actually, I've dug a bit deeper in that area, and this is like I said earlier, COVID is the focus for this, and so in that summary of the video, one of the things they talk about is that, oh, well, it seems like the first word of the Bible has a lot of prophecies hidden in it, and if you put into YouTube something called I guess you can say end times prophecy. You can also type end times Bereshit prophecy, which is kind of, so the Hebrew word for in the beginning is translates to Bereshit. That is a word not normally used for beginning in the Hebrew language. Have not started my Hebrew course yet, but I will actually hopefully learn a little bit more details about how to do word analysis and all that later. But apparently, like, another thing about Hebrew that I already knew before this year is that a lot of the words translate to numbers. So that's why numbers are also not necessarily the book numbers, but I mean like certain numbers are important in the Bible, like especially the popular ones like the number 3, 7, 40. What else? Those are the main. I mean, yes, you got like 12 is also obviously. So, anyways, so these actually have like a kind of a translation of like the number 7 is like represents completeness, for example. So if you had watched the video, they go into that in much more depth. But another thing that the video talks about is there's 7 prophecies that are fulfilled, and I really find that it was really fitting there, where you can see like how he lined up how the number 4,000 or like 4 days of creation was kind of projected that between if we were to take the Bible literally, and you mark down Adam in the 1st century had sinned, then from 4000 BC to 0, the 1st century AD, that would actually show that there was like a exact fulfillment of between 4,000 years of when God set in to have a new beginning of bringing the end of sin and through Jesus. And anyways, I haven't watched the video for like in full for like over a week now, so but I've been kind of preoccupied and not able to get to making this video. Anyways, so I'm just gonna play the audio from there off the device here, and then you can actually hear that section for yourself. And then we'll get into a little bit more background information, like from like this passage from Revelation I read, and then we'll actually go from there.
BC. The 6-day miracle creation begins, the beginning followed by the 7th day of rest, the beginning of the first man Adam, who was sinless for 33.5 years. Number 2, 3970 BC, the beginning of sin and rebellion, the year Adam sinned, 33.5 years after creation. Number 3, 30 AD, the new beginning that opened up the way to heaven based on the atoning death of the last Adam, Jesus the Christ, who accomplished our salvation on a wooden cross as prophesied. The beginning of the church age. Number 4, the departure of the church, the new beginning highlighted for believers by a new glorified body fit and made for heaven and perfected in order that we might enjoy our Lord and Savior, as we are blessed beyond reason to be in His presence forever and ever. Number 5, 2023 AD, Daniel's 70th week, also known as the Great Tribulation that lasts 7 years and proceeds with no time gap, the second coming of Christ. The beginning of sorrows for the world and the beginning of discipline for God's beloved children of Israel, who will go under the rod of discipline in order that they might finally call upon Yeshua HaMashiach with eyes of faith finally open to see that Jesus, Yeshua, is their Savior. Number 6, 2030 AD. The second coming of Christ, the beginning of the millennial reign of Christ on the earth that will last for 1,000 years. And finally, number 7, 3030 AD. By fire, the end of the present heaven and earth and the creation of a new eternal heaven and earth, the beginning of the eternal state. You will notice that I did not forecast a year for the departure of the church. There is currently an open window of time through which the Lord is going to slip through and collect his church. That window of time has been slowly closing for almost 2,000 years, and it's almost shut. We know that the departure of the church could happen at any time. And now we know that while the window of time appointed for his coming could close today or tomorrow, we simply do not know exactly when the Lord is coming, but we do know that the window of grace will slam shut no later than 2023 AD, the same year that begins the 7-year Great Tribulation, also known as Daniel's 70th week. The window of time that was fully open nearly 2,000 years wide in 30 AD is now only open 5 years wide as of the production of this article in March of 2018. Does this mean that we have 5 years before Christ comes to gather us into his presence and take us home? No. It means that we could have up to 5 years before Christ comes to gather us into his presence, or we could have only minutes before we are in his presence. The Bereshit Passover prophecy is a set of very simple, forthright, and easy to understand collection of puzzle pieces made up of pictures and numbers. Once assembled, the Bereshit Passover prophecy contains the forecast that the Church of Christ will not exist on the earth after the year 2023. It may not exist on the earth after 2022, or 2021, or tomorrow.
Bam! Mic drop. Yeah, so basically, hopefully the audio does get picked up by the mic from the speaker there, pretty good. So as you may have heard that just now, that video was produced in March of 2018. It's not published on YouTube until November 21st, 2018, according to the caption in the description. And again, I will post a bunch of these links in the description of this video so that you can have easy access to it. So that really shocked me because, like, I guess obviously this is, this video was made like pre-COVID, and the thing is, like it's the thing is, we know that that God is never like, he doesn't. I don't think that. So what I'm gonna say is that when there's a prophecy, or there's some grand scheme of things, like God wants to save the world, right? For example, there's never going to be like an exact prediction of the details, and that's not to say that God isn't all-knowing, but but what I'm saying is because as the argument is that we are free will, right? So for example, if I decide to go for a walk, I don't know, 13, 14 hours from now, or whatever it is, does God know whether I'm going to turn left or turn right, or that does not become known to God until I actually make that decision? So the latter is what I believe, right? So basically, you can't just say prophesize that, okay, on it's going to be August 30th, Kevin is going to head south at 5 p.m. whatever. You can't have those type of details. You might say that but you could have some more general and vague prophetic fulfillments, saying like, Kevin is gonna go for a walk 4 times for at least 10 minutes on the last week of August, and and if you had predicted that, even like a year ago or like even just a week ago, it's still accurate because that's what happened this week, right? So I think, like, like is said in that that clip that I played is actually from that video. If you don't have time right away and you want to go back to this video to watch the whole thing, it's actually from about 57 minutes in to like an hour and a minute in, is what I played you, those 4 minutes there. And but it's like it predicted that the church is going to close its doors, or the church is going to be taken away from earth. And as as one of the things that happened in COVID is that we don't go to a physical church anymore. And earlier in the video, I believe, or maybe later, it says that the church will be it gets departed and it comes right back. So it's kind of like anyway. And the other thing is, I think I kind of want to now shift gears a little bit as quickly as possible. Like, I'm trying to make a 20-minute video here, and I'm running out of time. So I don't want to go too fast for you, like, and I know it's a lot to process. So but that's the great thing about video, you can play it again and again, right? And a lot of people are switching over to YouTube even before COVID, like who are not necessarily pastors, like and some of them may or may not have divinity education. Obviously I fall into the latter category of actually having some. But just to name a few, you may have seen on YouTube, Paul Morgan, Olinger, if I pronounce their name right, or Olinger. There's Becca Eller and Mark Ballinger. So I'll just give a bit of a shout out to some of the people I've been following that have been making videos even since before COVID. But now, as you know, everybody's kind of moved online, and just like it says in 1 Peter 2:9, we are a royal priesthood. So I think right now it's really important for a lot of Christians to just try to get their voice heard, because we no longer have that traditional setup where it's like, if you are like in church or whatever, then you're guaranteed you at least have sometimes if a really big church with really big seating capacity, close to 2,000 people at one time, physically able to hear your voice, whether or not they're paying attention and they're able to remember what you say is another thing. But that's not necessarily happening right now. So I think it's great to see that the people who have already started putting stuff online and continuing to do that. School might get really busy for me, so I don't know if I can necessarily do this but I'll try to make a weekly commitment until things become too troublesome. So anyways, as I said, I was going to read from Revelation. So this is Revelation chapter 13, or Revelation 13. I'm going to go a little bit from so the heading is the beast out of the sea. I'm going to go from the end of, so the second half of verse 3 all the way to 9, I guess. We'll go there. The whole world was astonished and followed the beast. Men worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast, and they also worshipped the beast and asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can make war against him?" The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, and to exercise his authority for 42 months. He opened his mouth to blaspheme God and slander his name and his dwelling place, and those who live in heaven. He was given power to make war against the saints and to conquer them. And he was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the book of life belonging to the Lamb that was slain from the creation of the world. He who has an ear, let him hear. So, this is actually the first time I revisit this passage after all the other stuff that I've been, kind of like exposed to and looking up to. And there's also like another link that I'll post in the description. It's like one of the search results that I clicked on for what does the Bible say about the Antichrist. But here, like basically in Revelation, assuming that these these numbers are not necessarily averages or whatever it is. But even so, like, you know, if you watch that video that I referenced earlier, you'll see that not everything is necessarily like on the, what do you call it, like on the dot, right? Like I said, like you know, could you predict whether tomorrow I decide to go for a walk for 22 minutes, or is it going to be like roughly half an hour? So the roughly half an hour would be the prophetic fulfillment if that's how long I decide I actually go for a walk. The exact is 22 minutes. So particularly here when it says that in verse 5, and to exercise his authority for 42 months. Well, I also some months ago, before I lost access to Netflix, I watched the documentary that Bill Gates spoke in. I think it's called the Coronavirus Explained, and apparently the health experts did find out about the virus already in 2019, but they didn't necessarily think of it as going to be a threat. But the whole point is it's you cannot necessarily date the virus as like coronavirus exists in 2020 because it actually exists in 2019 as per the abbreviation COVID-19, right? So but it kind of started becoming a problem sort of like in the middle of the year, so to speak, right? But then, like, you know, 42 months, so I was like, okay, you know, I know like a year is 12 years, so I used the calculator and I was like, oh, okay, so it actually, if you know, divide 42 by 12, it becomes 3.5, or basically roughly 3.5 years. So that's why I was like, oh, okay. So maybe there is a little bit more to that inspiration I had earlier when I was trying to prepare for this talk, than I thought had meets the eye. Okay, so I'm a little bit over my time, so I'll try to wrap this up in the next few minutes. So as you can see, 3.5 years. And as that video was saying, like, the year of Daniel, whatever it is, the tribulation, like, basically roughly the year 2023, there's going to be like another big event that's predicted. But it's like, okay, so COVID is like happens exactly 3.5 years before the 2023, pretty much. So in that sense, it's like, okay, well, like that there's some method to the madness that I thought that maybe there's some of the work of the Antichrist in COVID. Obviously, like, God allows this to happen, and it's like it's kind of funny because, like, I was, even before the lockdown, I was reading a book, Homo Deus, by, what's his name, Yuval Harari, I believe that's how you pronounce it, and that's what it is. I have to, there it is. It's give me one sec. Yuval Noah Harari. I think that's the closest pronunciation I can come up with. Yeah, so they're saying that, we almost have achieved immortality as human beings, and a lot of the reasons for that is because, well, we got world peace, pretty much. Like, when we haven't had a world war for over 5 years. How do I say it? Over 5 decades. Obviously, we still got conflicts, but but there isn't like any global wars happening. For the most part, we've conquered a lot of diseases. Just like if you watched that documentary I just talked about, the Coronavirus Explained, like measles, Spanish flu, whatever. A lot of those have been, technology and medicine advancements have overcome them. So it's like, it's like almost like, humans can handle everything. But then, like, God allows, like, this is like coronavirus. Bam! Like, all of a sudden, like, on time, sort of, if that video has some pretty accurate, predictions, on time, there's something here that's basically overpowered all the governments, and it's like we all are kind of having to submit to this because we don't have, it's like the one thing we can't fight, right? It's like, if there's somebody, like, I don't know, if, like when I was a kid, somebody stole my bike. A bunch of guys from the neighborhood, they stole my bike and they trashed it, whatever. So there's something you can identify, and there's something you can go up against. And if I was present when they were doing it, I could try to stop them, right? Because I have the physical. But right now we're powerless against coronavirus, so it's sort of like it has authority over the whole world, sort of like the Antichrist. And ironically, the spelling of COVID, how if like they shorten Christmas with an X, Xmas, and the X sort of represents the cross. If you take apart those two strokes in the X, and I don't really know like how Hebrew comes up with the strokes and all that yet, but apparently each letter, like the way it's kind of like symbolic, so it's more like Chinese, where it's like you kind of draw like symbols to represent for certain things in each letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So that's it's more of a hieroglyphic type of language as opposed to English. But I'm just saying, like, if you, even in English, which has become our international language now, if you take out the those two strokes from the X, and then you dismantle it, it becomes like a V. And the V is like, it's sort of like virus or COVID or whatever, sort of like the V in COVID, COV. And it's like, so I thought, like, all right, I'm talking too much now, and I'm kind of almost going to go 10 minutes over time. But so I wrap it up, and I think, like, I realized that, hey, what if, like I said about the details earlier about, like, if I go for a walk tomorrow, I'm going to go north, south, east, west. We don't always know the details, and we don't know, like, how, things are going to plan out. Even in that video, they're saying that the reason why Jesus' crucifixion happened in 2030 AD as opposed to 2000. Sorry, was it 30 AD as opposed to 0 AD is because Adam had sinned, according to the prediction of what they think that when they track it that in third. Was it, or like, yeah, 3970 or whatever, 30 years after he, his own chronological years, right? Which is 3970 BC. So basically, like, yeah, because of that, that's why we have, that, right? So, like, maybe in earlier decades we would have predicted that there would be somebody who took over the whole world. Say if Hitler seceded, and he would have, at that time they would have thought of him as the Antichrist. But since we don't have that situation in our world right now, like I said, like, so we didn't go north, we went south or whatever. I mean, like, that figuratively speaking, events didn't unfold the way where we have like a world leader. Even Trump is not necessarily, has a power over everybody over in, Hong Kong or Australia. But what does seem to have some power and authority over everything is COVID. Just like they predicted about the Antichrist. So that's going to be like the end of the message for today. And I'm going to get it uploaded. And yeah, so hope you like it. And yeah, I just my first attempt at trying to make it 20-minute or a bit longer, and the one thing I really wanted to try to aim for is that because the other time that I did have to do an assignment and prepare a sermon, I actually did a lot of, I guess you can say, at over an hour of preparation and rehearsal before each minute of production, which is not which I can't really I decided not to do that for this series. And so this is kind of like a lot more unscripted, so to speak. See you guys, and God bless.